hope that you have watched the other video for the first few problems and that you didn't bother yourself to watch the last 3 minutes or so of that last video where I kind of screwed it up. So I wanted to start on this one again. What you would do on this problem, 123 here, would be to start by putting it in your calculator in the y equals. Go to the y equals and go ahead and choose y1. And instead of f of x, we're going to go to y1 equals this x squared minus 2x minus 8. Once you put that in, you want to hit second table. Table's right above graph. And get your table so that you can look at the numbers to make a good graph. And so some of those numbers that we would get, if you were looking at the table in your graph, you might be able to see those. And I'm also going to look at a table, but I'm unfortunately unable to show you that table. And my table would look something like this, my x and my y1. And I would have -4, 16, -3, 7, -2, 0, -1, -5, and it would go on for a while like that. And I would have to look at this and decide what I'm going to do. If you notice, this -4, 16 is too big to fit on the graph that's 10 by 10 unless I count by 2s or something. Now, it's fine to count by 2s if you want, but most of the time it's sufficient to just count by 1s. If I want to do that, then the place that I want to start is not there, but actually at the next line, -3, 7, because that's the first point that'll go on the graph. So if I want to do that, I'm going to go over to my graph. I'm going to count back 3, or in other words, left 3, and up 7, and I'm going to put a point there. Kind of missed a little. It's a little higher. Okay. Then I'd go to the next line, -2, 0. So back 2 and right on the y-axis. I put a point at -1, -5. So left 1, down 5. Continuing on, I'd need some more points to put into my table. So I'd look back on my calculator and I can see that at 0 I have -8. At 1 I have -9. At 2 I have -8 again, and then it goes back up from there. So putting these points on my graph, 0, -8, 1, -9, 2, -8, and then one neat thing about parabolas is they are symmetrical. So knowing that, I know that if I look at the point that I put on earlier, I can go and put one that's kind of in the same spot, but on the other side. And the same with the one on the x-axis, if I put another one there on the x-axis. And then finally, that top point, I can move over and put a symmetrical point for that one as well. You see that I'm sorry that the points aren't perfect, but you can see the shape of the parabola there. So at this point, I can sketch in a reasonably good parabola using those points. Didn't quite get it right because of the computer, but close enough. All right, now it asks for special points. I'm going to go ahead and erase this table so I can have some room to write the answers. And special points. We've talked about special points, key points, important points, as being our intercepts and our vertex for a parabola. So let's look at our x-intercepts. Well, where does it cross the x-axis? Here and here. One of those points is at -2, 0. And the point on the right is at 4, 0. Let's look at our y-intercepts. That's where it crosses the y-axis. It only has one y-intercept right here. And that point is at 0, -8. We also want our vertex, and I know I did not draw perfectly into the vertex, but there's the point, the lowest point. Our vertex was at 1, -9. The last thing it asked me to do is domain and range. It does ask about symmetry. We used symmetry to draw it, but I'm not going to ask you to describe it. Sorry about the interruption. I need to get the domain and range now. So looking at domain and range, remember that the domain is all your x values. X-axis goes left to right, so we go left to right. If we're looking to the left, this graph never stops. If we're looking to the right, this graph also never stops. So if we were going to write the domain, we would say all real numbers, or that fancy R with the extra line in it, because it never stops in either direction. But for the range, it does have a lowest point. Range is the y-axis, which goes up and down. So we go bottom to top with the range. At the bottom, the lowest it goes is right down here at -9. At the top, though, it goes on forever. So we would say that y is greater than or equal to -9. We say greater than because it points up. The numbers are getting bigger. So y is greater than or equal to -9.